Gretchen Spreitzer. I'm the faculty director for the Center of Positive Organizations, and I'm really excited to be here with you on this beautiful, balmy spring afternoon in February. Anyway, we are, our Center for Positive Organizations is focused on the science of positive organizations. We do the research behind it, but then also really think about what are the routines and practices drawing from that research about how to transform organizations. And the work you're going to hear about today is very much a part of that. Are any of you joining Positive Links for the first time? I think so. Yeah, look how many people. It's great to have you with us today. Welcome. And also, I know there's a number of you that are joining us virtually through the live stream, and we welcome you too. And we encourage all of you to let people in your network know to come for next month's talk or to join on the live stream. We also archive these so that you can watch them at any time in the future. And for those of you that are coming in right now, there's still seats in the front row. So feel free, and even in the second row, so feel free to come on down. I do want to acknowledge our generous sponsors, Paul and Diane Jones, the Sanger Leadership Center, the Tauber Institute for Global Operations, the Zell Lurie Institute for Entrepreneurial Studies, and the University of Michigan Learning and Professional Development group. So we so appreciate all of their support. They allow us to put on events like this. So for those of you that have been here before, you know what's coming next. And that is a chance to practice one of these positive routines, and that's the high quality connection exercise. So in just one moment, I'm going to ask you to stand up, find somebody you don't know, you haven't met before, say hello, and you've got 30 seconds each to make a high quality connection. You figure out what that means for you. So, are you ready? Stand up, find somebody you don't know, make a high quality connection. We haven't. Can I have you join a different high quality connection? Take your seats. Well, I can feel the energy in the room went up by about 10 decibels, so that's great. So we have a sold out session today for this workshop, not surprising. Entitled Putting High Quality Connections into Practice. So I'm going to introduce each of our speakers first, and I'm going to refer to my notes because there's so much I could say, and I want to say it succinctly. So first, Monica Worline. So I first met Monica when she was a doctoral student here in organizational psychology at the University of Michigan, where she stood out from the very beginning as a really courageous scholar. You guys, there are seats up here, come on up. As a courageous scholar with a really deep interest in compassion. And in fact, she became one of the founding members of the Compassion Lab, the world's leading research collaboratory focused on compassion at work. And today she's its executive director. She's also the founder and CEO of a very interesting organization called Enliven Work. They teach business leaders how to tap into courageous thinking, compassionate leadership, and the curiosity to bring their best work to life. And they're a social benefit organization connected to our center in some really important ways. And I love their tagline. Listen to this. Our work can enliven or deaden us a bit each day. Which will it be for you? Isn't that beautiful? I think this will be a session that will certainly be enlivening our day for us. Monica also holds a lecturership here at Michigan Ross and is a research scientist at the Stanford University Center for Compassion and Altruism Research and Education. So we're really glad to have you back with us again, Monica. And then second, and definitely not least, is Jane. And what can I even say about Jane? I think it's all been said before, but as a scholar, Jane is such a visionary, as a distinguished university professor, as a founder of our Center for Positive Organization. She really is very visionary and encourages us always to do our very best work. She's an innovator in so many different ways, with being the developer of so many different concepts related to POS, whether it's compassionate work or high quality connections, issue selling. I could go on and on. But maybe most importantly, Jane is just a wonderful colleague and a friend. She radiates energy, as you know, and she's a matchmaker extraordinaire. So she'll find a way to link people that might seem there's no possible connection, and she finds it, and she's absolutely right. But she really helps us advance our thinking and how to really become our best selves. So I know I'm not alone when I can say that in both my life and in my scholarship, that I'm a better person, both for knowing Jane and Monica and having them in my life. So with that, please give a warm welcome to the both of them. You guys are you're like rock stars.
Rock stars. Okay. This is so exciting to have all of you here. It really is great. And Monica, I'm really excited to be doing this with Monica. For many of you, you know that I've been working on this idea of high quality connections for a really long time. But what's been really wonderful the last couple of years is Monica and I have been working on compassion at work. And through that process of bringing compassion at work into workplaces, we think we've got an idea about how to put high quality connections into practice that we couldn't see before we started working with organizations and trying to lift up their compassion capability. So in some sense, this is a test case. This is a coming out party. Like, we hope we're going to try this and see if it's generative and useful for you. We're also trying this new thing which we're calling duetting, which means a dual presentation. We'll kind of go back and forth. I'm going to start us out, and then Monica will chime in, and hopefully this will all be well coordinated. But let me just remind you, from the moment you woke up this morning, you were in connection. Maybe it was in bed. Maybe it was with your pet. Maybe it was virtually on TV, or maybe it was sitting around the kitchen table, or in my favorite way, at Starbucks, first thing when you enter the Ross building. The important point is to remember that our lives are composed of these moments of connection, and the word connection is really important. We're very intentional about using the word connection as opposed to relationship, because we want you to think about those micro moments of interaction, virtual or real, with other people. We like to think about connections on a continuum, that you can think about these connections, these small, very micro interactions that you have with other people, varying from being low quality to neutral to these high quality connections. And in the language of POS, we often talk about positive deviance. We can think about these high quality connections as a form of positively deviant interactions. We're passionate about high quality connections, and there's a couple of reasons.
Well, the first thing I want to say before I give you the reasons is just how grateful I am to be duetting with Jane. And the other thing I want to say that ties back into the reason that we're passionate about high quality connections is that it was actually 1 year ago today that Awakening Compassion at Work, our book, hit the market.
Oh, wow, I didn't know.
So it's our 1 year anniversary.
I saw that.
And I'm sorry to tell you there's still suffering in the world. And that is one of the big needs for high quality connections. And we think of high quality connections as a part of the soil of organizations that helps compassion grow. One of the largest costs for employers, you all know, is healthcare costs, and anxiety and depression and stress-related illnesses are the #1 driver of healthcare costs. They're #1 reason that people seek treatment. And what we know is that if you feel lonely, if you're socially isolated, your health declines. You're more likely to have these kinds of health-related claims. And there's very, very solid research that does meta-analytic work on statistics over 4 million people that is able to show that if you feel lonely, you're socially isolated in your world, you are going to die sooner than you would otherwise. So loneliness is strongly linked to premature death at about the same rate that smoking is related to death. So that's one of the needs, is that people need the connection that work can provide them if it provides high quality connection. But another of the needs is that when people feel stress at work, the cause of stress at work is often being in those low quality connections, or what Jane calls corrosive connections. And moments of corrosive connection can undermine the whole rest of your day. I'm sure you know this, right? One interaction that goes sour can change the rest of the trajectory of your working day. And very few people feel that they have the skills to turn around these stressful events at work. So knowing more about high quality connection, how to put them into practice and how to design for them helps us with this kind of a need. And finally, moments of incivility. Research by our good friend Chris Porath and Chris Pearson and other people has shown that the numbers are astronomical. Like 98% of people can talk about rudeness at work. Basically, all of us can talk about moments when we feel that there's been incivility in our work life. But more than 50% of people talk about their workplace in terms like abuse and toxicity. Right, and so when that's the kind of work environment that we're looking at, the need for high quality connections is really desperate.
So that's the need, but that's only part of the equation about why we're so passionate about this. And that has to do with the benefits of high quality connections. So some of the research that I've done with a number of different colleagues suggests that one of the surprising findings is that when we have one of these short-term high-quality connections, it actually increases our capacity to think. It increases our creativity, partly because of what it does to positive emotion. We feel these connections. In an in-depth review of a bunch of decades of medical research, we were really curious about what was the physiological effects of these short-term interactions on people's bodies. And the overall take is that when we're in these high-quality connections, it increases our physiological resourcefulness by changing our endocrine system, by changing our cardiovascular system, and changing our breathing Third, our research suggests that when we're in these high quality connections, we're actually more flexible, more adaptable, more resilient. So this is just the benefits that come from research that I've done. I think one of the images I really love to think about is that when we're in these connections, it actually unlocks resources from within. It strengthens us from within. And sort of a tabulation, again, quote unquote, the bottom line of what high quality connections do is actually astounding. It's astounding. I mean, I had to really, people who are in my classes know, I started as a doubter. And when I started to, again, as a non-believer, become convinced of the impact of high quality connections at multiple levels, I think this is something that we should be teaching kids, you know, when they're 3, 4, 5 years old, and as adults live into. So just to give you a sense of it, at the individual level, again, each one of these bullets has good studies behind it, what high quality connections do at the individual level. I already suggested some of the things. There's also implications at the team level. If you're in a team that has more of these high quality connections, you learn faster, you're more adaptable, you're more creative. And at the organizational level, people are more attached to organizations in which they have these high quality connections. In organizations where collaboration or coordination is really important for whatever you're doing, a product or a service, again, high quality connections give you the mechanism for doing that. So high quality connections matter in lots of different ways.
Now, the question is, if you look at all this evidence and you think there's this epidemic of loneliness and there's the solution, right, that forming these high quality connections, you get really curious about what are these things. And so one question is, how do you know if you're in one? So Gretchen gave you this activity to start off the session today, to form a high quality connection with someone else in just 30 seconds. And that is such an interesting instruction when you start to dive into what happens. So now that you're aware of how important it is actually, I want to give you the chance to do it again. So stay at your table this time, but you just have 30 seconds to form a high quality connection with someone at your table. And pay attention to how you know it's a high quality connection. Okay? 30 seconds, form a high quality connection, go. Put your hand up. That's the summer camp way to get you to stop. It's the only way to get you to stop. Thank you very much. How did you know what was going on in that explosive 30 seconds? How did you know how to form a high quality connection in 30 seconds? This mysterious instruction. How did you know? Yes. You ask them questions, and what happens when you ask questions?
Then you are in a position to hear about the joys and gifts of their life, and you can immediately connect with something.
So you're drawn in, you feel the joys and gifts of their life. I don't know if you could all hear that, but there's a particular kind of question you're asking if you're drawing out the joys and gifts of someone's life, right? So you're feeling, in that case, what you might think of as alive, vitality, right? That as you engage and feel engaged with that other person, a whole bunch of things are happening, but one is that more vitality is surging in to the connection between you, and this joy and gift is kind of creating this uplift. Okay, how else do you know it's high quality?
They expressed a genuine curiosity.
A genuine curiosity. How did you know it was genuine? It seems a little bit like magic, right? But you can discern. This is part of what Jane is talking about with the fact that these high quality connections are deeply intrinsically connected to our physiology, right? That they're so deeply related to our health is partly because we have so many capacities to discern them that we don't even have language for. So we can really feel when we're in a high quality connection that we actually are being positively regarded by other people, right? And we know that genuine curiosity and positive regard is coming to us. Somehow we know that in a way that we don't even have to put words around. And the other quality of a high quality connection is that it's mutual. And I know Jane is really passionate about the mutuality of high quality connections, but you're both in it and you know the other person is in it with you. So the questions, the engagement, the drawing out, the genuineness, all of this is how you know instantaneously that you're in one of these high quality connections. And that's part of the power of them, because you also know instantaneously if you're in a lower quality connection, and that sets a trajectory for how you're going to go together through whatever interaction that you're having.
So we wanted to have you all do another pairing exercise. And this time we want you to think about a high quality connection you've had in the last 24 hours, did we say? Oh, last week. No, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make you think about the last 24 hours. Because part of the purpose of this is for you to notice them. In order for them to have that work their magic, you really need to notice them. So in the last 24 hours, I am sure you've had them. But it may take a little bit of
just
thinking.
in this room, we might have to
And it
out.
can be at work or at school or wherever, just in your life, the last 24 hours. And what difference did it make? So pair up or trio up. We're going to give you just a short, brief period of time, but it's important for you to call up a story and try to share it.
And focus on what difference it made this time in addition to how it feels. And if you're joining us on the live stream, please feel free to do this as your own reflection. You may not have a partner there, but you can do this as a reflective activity for a few minutes. I'm sure it won't feel like long enough, but I'll be ringing this bell. So.
Okay, go.
put your hands up. Thank you so much. You're getting the hang of this. I love it. Thank you.
You know,
Okay, Jane.
Before we go to the next slide, I just wanted to say that Barb Fredrickson's, some of her most recent research suggests that just thinking about these stories actually has the same impact, almost the same impact as actually doing them. So again, think about if you're going through your day and you're not in your mind at least conjuring up and elaborating a story of high quality connections, you're getting fewer vitamins than you could have. I think what we have hopefully set up is for the last part of our conversation with you is a focus on, well, if these are so important and we have this need, how do we do this, specifically at the organizational level? How do we design organizations or groups to foster more high quality connections? And again, I'm an organizational researcher. We are both organizational researchers, and really where we think the real power of this is how do we institutionalize high quality connection building in organizations so that the soil is fertile in terms of more high quality connections. And we could focus on rewards, we could focus on leaders, we could focus on culture. All of those are really important contributors to high quality connections, but Monica and I are really passionate about routines and roles. And that's what we're going to have you engage with for a minute, because roles and routines are a way to, in a more repeatable way, a more institutionalized way, to again till into the soil of an organization a repeated capacity and desire to build high quality connections. We're going to combine this focus on roles and routines with a framework that comes from work that I've done on these 4 pathways for building high quality connections, which without going, I teach a whole course on this, so this is a whole course in one slide, which basically says there are 4 pathways we can bet on for building high quality connections. One is task enabling. That's all the things that I do to help you succeed in whatever you're trying to do. Also respectful engagement, that's all the things that I do to signal and deliver a message to you that you are a person of worth and value. There is trusting or conveying to another person that that person is competent and reliable and they're going to meet our expectations. And finally, playing. So we're going to combine these 4 pathways and create this designing for high quality connection framework that answers the question, how can we design roles and routines as repeatable structures or elements of organizations so that they unlock and generate more helping, that's just another simpler word for task enabling. They generate and enable us to convey more respect. They unlock and generate more trust. And finally, finally, I must have gone too fast here. And they unlock and generate more play. So that's the framework we're going to build on and have you play with. So Monica.
Okay, so we're going to work with this framework and we're going to invite you to do some brainstorming at your table, because we think that, as Jane said, the focus on roles and routines as design elements helps you think. If you're a leader or a manager or a team builder and you're trying to design so that it's more likely that people have more of these moments in their day, right? More of this strengthening from within and this energizing vital connection that you just had with other people in the room is built into the fabric of your workday. And if you think about a role, roles are so interesting as a designer because they're simultaneously recurring and really important structures, but they're also flexible, right? So a role is in some ways a set of expectations that each of us can carry around about what we're supposed to do in an organization, what we're responsible for. But we don't develop those expectations willy-nilly. Right? The organization helps us develop that set of expectations. So also as a designer, we have some input into how people internalize what they think roles are and what responsibilities they think are important as they do their work. And of course, you can think of roles outside of work as well. If you want to think about a role in another part of your life, that will also work for this activity. But if you are a teacher or a professor or a student, I think we have a lot of those in the room. So we're going to use that as our example right now. Right? Think of those as really important roles. And there's a degree of freedom, or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10, right? There's degrees of freedom in how you perform the role of professor or teacher and how you perform the role of student. But if we say the words professor and student, we know what each other are meaning generally, right? So it's sort of a shared set of expectations along with that flexibility and freedom. And just to give you a flavor of the power when you start helping people reinvent their roles with connections in mind, we want to offer an example. Whether you think this is a healer or whether you think this is a hospital cleaner, we're going to let you decide. But here's a different role than teacher. But think about this kind of role expectation and role design and how powerful it could be to help people think about their work.
And before we go to the tape, I just want to mention, this is Candice Phillips, who, really we owe so much to in terms of teaching us so much about job crafting, but also about how you can change your role. So, whoops.
Well, my involvement is basically with the patients. I'm basically a people person, and I try and have a smile on my face every day, no matter what's going on at home or with the department or with coworkers. When the patients see me, they have to see a smile, because you have to understand, when they come here, they're very sick. They don't want to come to an environment where everybody is frowning and pouting and there's fighting amongst each other. So I try and always have a smile, and I'm kind of a jokester. So from time to time, I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing, and when I push a cart, I accidentally run into a wall or something. And I actually get a lot of laughs out the patients, and for some reason, they'll always remember me doing that. So the next time they come, they're like, oh, I remember you. You the one got your driver's license at Sears. And they'll just laugh and laugh, and so then from that point on, no matter how long they come, they'll always remember that, and they'll start laughing. Because, see, my building is the cancer center, and our patients are here to get chemo, and they go to another building to get radiation, and they become really sick with the chemo and the medication. They're here for many hours getting their treatments. So it's really important for me, being that I'm the only housekeeper over here, that they see a positive person and that the environment is clean. And I do extra care on the bathrooms, because this is, right now is the cold season, and I make sure that the door handles are sprayed with like Virax and the sinks are clean, and I try and check the bathrooms every hour. So when they come in, the bathroom always smells good. Not too strong, because they're really sensitive to smells, because like I said, this is the cancer center. But basically, that's what I do here. I love patients. I love sick people. I have so much to offer sick people. Because when I don't feel good, or when I've been sick or have had to have surgeries,
as a designer, if you
the
think
one
about
thing that got me
Candice
through
and
was a
how
very pleasant.
She's holding her role, right? How is she designing that role for herself, and how is the organization helping her do the role so that she's doing more helping? Right? Because more helping, we know, generates more moments of high quality connection. How is she doing the role so that she's able to create more respect? How is she being supported to do the role in a way that creates more trust between people? And then that lovely story about the cart, right? How is she doing the role in ways that create more playfulness in the environment? So this is an example of how we want to ask you to think as designers. Here's another, I promised you a teacher, professor example. So if you're in Jane's class, you can shout out some answers to this, because I think it will look familiar. We've been playing with this role redesign ourselves and living it out and seeing what we can do with it. So how could you be a teacher or a professor and facilitate more helping in class? Shout out any ideas that you have. Anybody?
Well, you could create more office hours.
There's some up there. Look at that. Some ideas you could create more office hours, right? How many of you have your teacher's cell phone on their syllabus? Well, you do if you're in our class. How could professors create their role so that they're fostering more respect for their students and more respect of students for each other in class? Any ideas?
Know the names before class begins.
Here's one.
So I'm in a senior capstone for the BBA program right now.
Yeah.
I'm really impressed that on the first day my professor didn't just know my name but also knew some background about me, my career interests, what I'm looking to do after school. I thought that made a big difference.
Wonderful. So in that first moment of getting to bringing you in to the class, there was a conveying that you're important, and knowing something about you enables you to start off in a more respectful place together. Okay, how could you do teaching and the work of professoring that would enable more trust? Jane, how could you do that? Oh,
You could.
was there a hand?
Yes, there's somebody in my class. Yeah.
Oh,
go.
yes. Okay, speak loudly.
Yeah, you could acknowledge that you don't know all the concepts in certain areas and say, this is how we're going to deal with situations where we don't know something. So that it's invokes further inquiry rather than just stopping at an issue.
Wow.
Good.
Jane, there could be professors who don't know all the answers. Yes, their vulnerability, right, on the part of the professor could also enable all of us to say what we don't know more easily, so we would learn more together. And how could we do the work of teaching or professoring that creates more opportunities for playing together? Jane, how could we do that?
Well, we could do, at breaks, we could do stretches together, or salutations of the sun, or do other kinds of crazy things.
Yeah. Jane often brings snacks to class, and sometimes when I come and I do my guest lecture, I use the snacks as toys, and we do this little playful activity. So more opportunities for playing together. So we want you to think like designers now. For a couple of minutes, you have a worksheet on your table, and one side is dedicated to roles. Use the side that's dedicated to roles. The idea here is to pick a role that's important to you and come up with specific ideas like we did for teacher or professor. For that role, how could you redesign that role in ways that create more trust, create more respect, create more play, create more helping? Use your worksheet. If you're on live stream with us at home, you can download this worksheet and follow along with us. Really stretch your mind about this role and new things you could incorporate into the role. Okay, now, if you're along the wall, just huddle together with 1 or 2 other people in a small group. And those of you who are already deeply connected at your table, we know that you have good connections. We'd like you to just share 1 minute of sharing. What role are you working on? And what was one good idea that came out of redesigning this role? 1 minute of sharing at your table. Thank you. Okay, one more time. If you can see me, raise your hand. Excuse me. If you can see me, raise your hand. Thank you. Okay, thank you so much. Now we know that was really quick, but we have something fun planned for routines, so we don't want to run out of time to get there. But does anyone just burning to share one great role design idea that they had? Can we just have one? Bridget.
I picked the role of being a mom.
The role is mom.
The role is being a mom, and I picked the box help.
Okay, how can you mother in a way that creates more helping?
And I decided that I could focus on helping them meet their goals more because the day seems to be structured around what I want to get done.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old,
Okay.
and a 20-month-old. And my
6, 4, and 20 months. I'm repeating for the live stream.
And my thought was I could be very explicit about asking them, you know, there's 30 minutes before bedtime,
Right.
guys. What do you want to do in that time?
Okay.
And then try to help
Yeah.
them.
So if you know what they want to do, you could help them accomplish what they want to do instead of trying to manage around what you want to do as mom. Thank you, Bridget. Wonderful. Jane.
Monica, I just want to say, like, you can imagine, I think, I mean, from how we've been playing with this, getting a group of people together who are playing the same role and having people brainstorm together about how to expand or redefine their role in ways that tap into these 4 different mechanisms for building high quality connections. So it's not just, I think actually doing it as a collective activity in a workplace could be really generative.
Right, with
that
people
way.
who share the same role. This is one thing that we've discovered about compassion, which is part of what we're bringing into the connection more broadly, is that when you invite people who share a role to imagine doing that role with more compassion, you get generative ideas that you never would have come up with otherwise in the abstract. So we think this is a really powerful design
Simple.
tool. You can add it to your arsenal now. But as I said, we want to touch on routines before we send you all home. So I love routines. I'm kind of a geek this way. People's eyes glaze over when I say I love routines. But if you're an organizational scholar, you should really get passionate about routines, right? Because if you think about what a routine is, it's defined by scholars as a recognizable, recurrent pattern of activity. Right? So it's something that has to happen in order to accomplish work. People can recognize that it has to happen in order to accomplish work, and it happens over and over and over again. So if you can tap the routine and get something to change in the routine, it's very likely to scale because it has to happen, and it has to happen over and over and over again. And so that's why we thinking about how you could use routines to foster more high quality connection is a really generative place to think like an organizational designer. And you could pick any kind of routine you might want to work on. You could pick hiring, you could pick onboarding, you could pick membership development, you could pick fundraising, you could pick the routine of meetings, you could pick how you evaluate people, you could pick how the organization rewards people. Like there are all kinds of these fundamental routines that can be redesigned to draw out more trust, more help, more play, more respect. And so we have, by playing with this in relation to compassion, found that it's actually very generative to have people think about even tiny tweaks to their routine, which might seem small on the surface, but when spread across an entire group of people have really, really large impacts. So in order to share this idea with you, we want you to think about welcoming as a routine. Now, I don't know if you've ever thought about welcoming as a routine, but if you think about it, it's recurrent, right? Like every time you arrive somewhere, you're welcome somehow. It's recognizable because you know when you're welcomed or not welcomed. And it's something that we do in order to get on with the task that we're getting onto. And this is really important for the work of connecting. I don't know your name, would you tell me? Andrew. When Andrew shared how his professor was cultivating more respect, it was partly a first moments conveying of respect. And welcoming is such a powerful routine because it's part of the first moment that we touch a group of people. It's really important in creating a sense of hospitality, right? So hospitality organizations think a lot about how they first touch people when they arrive into their space or into their experience. And it's often central to the building of teams or not building teams, right? How people feel welcomed into a group. Remember that fact about social isolation. It's also perceived isolation, right? So people can be sitting at a table but feeling lonely. How do we welcome people into a space where they feel that they can be together? And this, again, welcoming is as this touchstone for bringing people together can unlock all of these other things that we want organizations and teams and groups of people to be able to do. So I said hospitality organizations think a lot about welcoming. If you ask yourself, like, when was the last time you traveled? You could think of you had lots of opportunities for welcoming routines that were successful at welcoming you or not successful at welcoming you. So what was your experience at the ticket counter? What was your experience when you came through immigration control? Did you feel welcomed into the country or not welcomed into the country? I just did a lot of international travel, so that example was really on my mind. But I also want to share a more organizational work example, courtesy of Rachael Headlock, who is here today. Thank you, Rachael. This is a picture of her desk, the first morning that she arrived at her job. And if you think about the routine of welcoming somebody onto the team and inviting them to be welcome in this space and to feel that they can be a successful contributor, there's a big poster. We're glad you're here, Rachael, right? You're going to do great. We're expressing belief in her capability. There's her name is on her desk. I don't know how many of you have a first day experience where nobody knew that you were arriving. You didn't even have a desk, much less one with a poster and your name on it. There's a gift, a colorful here. There's another gift here. The desk is all outfitted. It's warm and vibrant and welcoming, right? So you've also had an experience of being welcomed to Pause Links today. So if you think about welcoming routine, right, how could we welcome in ways that make it more easy for us to help each other as a community? ways that make it more easy for us to respect each other, ways that make it more easy for us to build trust together as a community, and ways that make it easier for us to play. So, this is your chance, right? Last time you guys were quiet, so this time more shouting out. How could we create pause links so that when you are welcomed in, there was more helping going on? Anybody have an idea? Having a buddy for the day. Yeah, so you, instead of registering as an individual, you get paired up with somebody. That's a wonderful design idea. Jane, what do we do now that fosters helping?
Well, we're trying to do it through the reminder email. We're trying to help people get here and remind them to show up. That's, I think that, some of the ways that we foster people to link to each other is not just playing, but also about helping.
Yeah. Okay, so how could we welcome you in ways that made you feel more respected? How could we as Pause Links welcome you in ways that made you feel more respected? Or that made you more likely to respect the other people that are here? Yes?
Maybe just shout out, when you said who are you people, maybe just shout out who schools for participating.
Yeah. Okay. So when Gretchen welcomed people and said who's new, she could also ask about affiliations of who's new or otherwise help people see who's new to meet each other more effectively. Wonderful. Yes?
Have somebody in the door that's like a leader, that's their role.
Yes, absolutely. So just bringing the role and the routine together. I love that design thinking.
There's another one. There's another one.
Okay, one more.
You can put your VIA character strengths on your name tag.
Oh.
Oh, yes, something more symbolic that would draw out more ability to know more about each other and recognize and respect each other. How about more trusting? Can you think of something that would help you trust each other more, or that would give you more trust in the community?
I could think of one that's a potential that we don't have here is, if we made more time for questions, which we're not going to have, that would be one.
Yes. And how about more playing? This was one where we felt like we could really do some work to build more playing. Yes.
You could have games or puzzles on the table to get people talking.
Oh, that's
yeah,
an interesting
artifacts
idea.
to foster play is a wonderful way. So you get the idea, right? That even thinking about our own experience right in the moment of this kind of routine, we can come up with new design ideas that change the way we build people's connection with each other. So in the minute that you have left, just turn back to your worksheet and pick one routine that matters to you and jot down a couple of ideas. The other side of your worksheet has routine space to generate ideas. Of respecting your time. You can see that we could go much deeper with this design idea, but we just want to thank you for being designers with us for the day, for letting us test out this framework. We'd love your feedback on if you think it was generative for you. And Jane wants to send you away with some more
I just want to make a
resources.
couple of just concluding points. Having been in a business school, I know I need takeaway slides. So, you know, just a reminder, these high quality connections, I keep saying, they don't cost money. They mean paying attention to them, and they unlock really important resources and capabilities in individuals and collective, and in collectivities. And I think it's really important to remember that there are systematic ways to build these high quality connections. It's not just about being nice. There are a menu of possibilities as skilled practice about how to build them. That roles and routines can be redesigned to foster these high quality connections, which is, I think, a really important opportunity for scaling this. It gets very exciting, and really the only limit to this is the limit to our imagination and believing that this is important. So thank you for going with us on this experiment. We've now learned this should be a 3-hour workshop, not a 50-minute workshop, but we hope we've lit your imagination, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I want to share with you one final idea for a routine, and that routine is at the end of every Positive Links, we have an artifact that we share as a token of gratitude to the speakers, but it's also a positive spiral, so it's a reminder to them on their desk of their role, I'm coming back, role and routine, that they are positive generators through all of their work. And so with that, we leave you with one last routine and artifact on behalf of all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.